Hey everybody, I'm back with Adam Duff.
How are you?
We have some awesome entries. This month's theme was to redesign Final Fantasy III, or the game Legacy of Kain Blood Omen, which was a PS1 game. So
Yep.
everyone was supposed to grab a screenshot and then redesign some sort of aspect or scene of that.
Yeah,
So
there's
some of
some
these are,
beautiful, beautiful
yes,
submissions here.
some of these very much fall on the design side of things. Some of these fall on the illustration side of things, and that's cool. We're gonna go. So in case you guys want to skip ahead to yours, we're gonna go in our standard left to right, top to bottom order. All right,
All right. So here we go.
PJ Sirac,
All
and
right.
this looks like a Blood Omen.
No doubt.
Oh yeah,
No
look at
doubt.
this. Look at the original area. Whew. It's how it was back in the day. We loved
Oh
it.
wow, check
He
this out.
he
I
does
didn't even
have the
see that, yeah.
UI on it. He does have the UI. Look at that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, beautiful. Like this is stuff you could definitely use in a professional context for sure, as far as design's concerned. Yeah, even UI solutions over there, that's really nicely done.
I
Very cool.
think the character here is awesome, but I'm having a discrepancy with the perspective, Adam.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit on the warped side. You kind of took a bit of a fisheye lens type of thing, at least with the mountains, but not with the character.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you put one element in there, it's good to put all the elements through that the 3 point perspective that we very much see here. The character is not. He's very much we're looking right behind him, and he's not in the 3 point, which
Hmm.
makes a little bit of that disconnect. So see, even something like that you have down here, it's a lot less obvious. I feel, and I think those would have even worked out better.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think the other thing that I would mention is the two pillars, or at least especially the pillar that you have over on the left side with the sky in the background and the blue at the base. There's a lot of blues going on, and that kind of flattens it. You might want to create a bit of a visual separation between that because the blue and blue creates a bit of a color tangent.
Oh, with the sky here and the
And like if you look at the top of the left one, you see the blue snow.
yeah.
Yeah, it kind of creates a bit of a color tangent, which
Mm-hmm.
messes with your sense of depth.
All right.
And the light beam you have coming in through the side, it kind of isolates this warm tone when it wouldn't really be that way. It would be more of an overlay
I
on
was
top of
gonna
it.
I was gonna say that it feels much too forced, and it
Yeah.
flattens out a lot of, like, it seems like you had everything fairly painted, and then you just we threw the light on top of it. But and honestly, that's I did that for years until, like, eventually it's like there's better ways of kind of handling that, because see, if the area that I selected and highlighted here, that all becomes it flattens it
Yeah.
immensely, and it's almost just better to paint it with the light on top
Yeah.
anyway, and then kind of adjust it through the levels so that you're not just glazing, like heavily glazing all that light
Yeah.
around it, which that's where the problem happens. So if I could, hopefully I could catch this earlier on in your career, and you don't have to go for years of making bad mistakes like I did. So see, like, this is kind of bringing that value range
Hmm.
back into check, and then of course you'd want to probably cool off some of those shadow areas again, and that's like the first step in kind of nudging it in the right direction. My other issue with the design of this as a whole was the central focused idea. Now, I like a good center composition, but the fact that you have a door here, we could see that there's a door there, which is cool. I like that idea. Oh, I need a thicker
Actually, I didn't
brush.
even notice that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a problem with the design when
Hmm.
we have that. Oh, that's why I had a weird selection. And you have the sword covering it right
Hmm.
over. It's coming right between the dude's legs, and then it's perfectly even lined up with this guy. It's just like maybe one too many elements all perfectly lined up in the center,
Yeah.
and it just, in my experience, not the best way to design out a scene like this.
You know what? This would be a good opportunity to mention something else as well, and that is if you want to play with symmetry, add a little bit of asymmetry. And a good example is if you look at some of the archways in France, if you look at them closely, you'll have this beautiful, very symmetrical archway with a road going down right down the middle. But if you look at the way they organize their statues, they'll have a statue just on one side. And that little bit of asymmetry balances everything. But when you make everything smack dab down the middle, it tends to look a bit redundant and boring compositionally. So
You
just
can
keep an eye
hold
out for that.
hold the sword here. Maybe you see like the bottom
Yeah.
of a shield here. and that's already asymmetrical. Then we could see the nice jolly archway through this dude's legs to the other door.
Yeah.
And that's basically all it would need, I feel, to improve the design. But, great job.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Really respected the game design as well. Looks excellent.
Close these as we go to get more real estate. Okay, hide that and get it back. Okay, number 2.
Yes.
So
the
here,
great Hans.
Great screenshot, great little moment in the scene, and I love how neat and orderly everything is, and you did a very direct. We could see your entire process. We could see what you were going for, and of course, the newest element first and foremost on it. This is a fabulous piece. I hope you make Reddit on this. Hope somebody on Reddit posts this somewhere. This is great.
Yeah. And look at for everybody else watching, look at the process. He completely organized his process right from left to right. Sketch, value sketch, color sketch, experimented with a few, tried out some different effects.
Detail.
He knew, even in those thumbs, we know exactly where to go with this piece, and he uses a very easy step-by-step process. So really well done, Hans. Beautifully.
Yeah, this is beautiful. I have minor suggestions at best for this. My first would be the tangent of this character here, in line with the focal point. I'd probably set them a little further back in space, probably like a little bit right there.
Yeah, to centralize her a little bit more.
Just
keep her the only centerpiece. Yeah.
Move and shrink. And I don't know if I have any other ones. That's the one I first caught. It's hard when your work is so damn good.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I would do? You know what you could do here? It's very, like Tyler said, very subtle suggestion, but this could benefit from a little bit of a hyper foreground element, something very, very close to the eye. Like those barrels, for instance, to move them in maybe a little bit closer and darken them to create a little sense of depth, because the value of the boxes over on the right and the left are kind of a little bit too mid-ground. Get that foreground element, and that'll suck you into the picture a little bit more. You definitely benefit from that. Yeah, scale them up and move them up closer. Because you notice as far as the scaling of all your characters, everything's pretty centered. You want to play with that dynamic depth a little bit more.
Yeah, so you scoot them in, put
there,
it right
look at
that. Give me a little crop tool, and then we just kind of put him into his little bit of a value range. We suck some detail out of him. Oh no, not like that.
You don't really need to emphasize the cat character so much, because we're looking at him from the back anyway. He's not really an actor in this scene. He's just kind of a secondary thing on the side. So
he's a stage prop.
Have a little bit of light hitting him. We'll know he's there.
Yeah, then you get that light back on him, which is good. Then create something of a different shape over here. You have a lot of good props already going. I think that'll help a lot. And then my last suggestion moving forward would maybe to balance out a little bit how that purple is affecting everything. Maybe scale it in as a whole just a little bit, kind of bringing it in, and then getting some kind of, like, I think it's a little more obvious, like right here. I think I kind of nudge it back a little bit more into this direction, because we can feel that purple light a lot more when you have like these more warm tones and these yellows, these complementary colors kind of surrounding the areas around that purple. It'd be a good accent color. But otherwise, fantastic job.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
All right, guys. Personal request or note on these submissions, and I realized it because I've been editing out in between every submission, because a lot of these files are absolutely massive. It's too big for even my computer at the quantity that I have to open these. So if I even look at this one, for example, you have the resolution at 300. This is way too big for this challenge. I'd say keep it them all, paint it with obviously whatever you want, but your submission, down res it to 72 resolution, and then make the width approximately like 1200 or something. This is more than large enough for me to open up without losing any kind of quality and be able to understand what's happening here. So just a personal, just a note to everybody. That would be great for us and keep the my computer running all right. Yeah. Anyways, awesome submission.
Yeah, fantasy illustration, beautiful sense of composition, great pose. I'm very engaged in this character. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm sure Tyler would say the same thing, is the warm tones in the background and the foreground are flattening the image a bit. You always want to recede with cooler tones in the back, right? Get a little bit of the
Yeah,
gold
and
against the red.
I was gonna say that, like even grabbing like some of these tones in here, and that's where we could definitely work things a little bit, work that magic, get a little more. I'd get a little more contrast in there too, like
Yeah.
really push that, and then offset it with a green or something like that. A little bit of green in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of solutions. There's not one solution to this, but like, so if this is kind of like warm back here, like take everything else in the background, like everything back here, and I'd emphasize that a little bit more. I'd lighten it up, and I would just soften that a bit as well, just to create that distance. Which, see, like this is the easiest way. See, now we're adding that a little bit, and then I think it just needs a little bit more of the blue color, like that.
You know, you've probably heard of light on dark, dark on light to create that sense of depth. You can also go cool on warm, warm on cool. So if you have a warm shirt, think about what's going to be behind it. And then she's got the cool waistband. You probably want a warm tone behind that and manipulate your clouds to fit that, basically.
See, this artist here, they're doing really well is the light and the dark aspects. It's very unified palette, but these values here are so much darker than the light values in the background, and like you kind of have that here with the sky. You keep that so simple, the character just pops. See, in terms of a shape, we can see that shape right here really well pop out. The issue with this is the hair is practically the same tone. You can see just a slight nudge as the clouds. And that's where the problem is. So if you know you're going to have a cloud, the character's hair right here, like this, flowing gracefully in the wind, that's your cue to take like a blue or a purple like this, something different than the hair color, by design-wise. Slap that behind the character.
There you go. Look at that.
And see, now that's how much you see that shape pop. And then you just paint the rest of it. So, of course, figure out what your character is, but design the background, in a sense, around how you're going to present your character.
Yeah, look at how that pops. It's that little bit of blue made a huge difference.
But you have really nice rendering, and I would keep at it. Keep referencing these really strong artists, and this is gonna this is really coming out good. It gets a little too flat in here again because I think a lot of the warms and the cools are very similar in tone, and you'd want to push that contrast, like the occlusion light, kind of like is happening in this sample here. You can see like there's really nice deep rich darks and then really nice bright lights. But I don't know about you, Adam, that's my only suggestion for that. Really
Nothing more than that.
The face is beautifully painted. I think I would get that weapon and some of the clothing a little more reference to bring it up to that level. It feel the quality's a little inconsistent across the whole thing, and that's what can stick out to some people. But as long as you're aware of that, you can tackle things up and bring things up very evenly and work on that presentation.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else to add to that. I think it's a nice piece of work for sure.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a great piece of work and a very cool character. One of my favorites.
All right, what do we got?
Battle by
Final Fantasy VI.
Mike Williams.
Vargas. All right.
Oh,
Well, this
bears.
definitely sticks out.
Bears.
This is
awesome.
very playful and it's. You know what's cool about this? I didn't mention it when we were looking at it before we started to record, but you captured the saturation of old school, 16-bit games, and it's kind of cool that you brought that into here, and it kind of works. It's a little bit heavy on the saturation there, but because you're referencing that particular context, it kind of works. If you're using this out of context, if this wasn't an old school Final Fantasy game, we might go, whoa, that might be a stronger reaction. But there's something to be said about that. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think capturing the old colors is certainly a challenge, and it's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. I definitely like it. But it takes a certain amount of finesse and planning to really get that right.
Yeah. Yeah.
One artist I'd like to point you to that I just think of off the top of my head would be like Jesper Easing. He does the same thing with the saturation and the color. So I'd study his work if this is kind of what a lot of your work relates to. Let me get
Hmm.
an actual illustration. There's something like this, very very classic feel to it, but
Yeah.
there is an obscene amount of planning that goes into this style and this aesthetic. I feel
Yeah.
something like this.
But notice that he isn't his saturations. If you see the actual substance source thumbnail over on the right side of the image, the advertisement, look at those saturations compared to the saturations you see in the image. It's quite toned down in that respect, and using a lot of cool tones with only a hint of some warms in there. Mostly cool with a hint of warm.
Yeah,
So, in yours, you've got the full image is hitting that, 80 to 100% saturation, and that's going to seriously, it's going to turn off people because it's like having somebody yelling in your face with color. You want to be a little bit more relaxed with your colors and not make such a bold statement all the time.
and, yeah. Think of where you can look for to really put in areas of implied detail and simplification. If you have everything that's fairly evenly detailed, from the characters in the foreground to the midground to the background, it flattens it out as well, and it makes it a little bit harder to read. You can even see here in the comp, the backgrounds they get reduced to a very graphic element.
Yeah.
And that would work well as here. So if you have your mountains and stuff, like think of like how their shapes can work and be direct without being too noisy and jittery. That can be distracting as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So think of those nice flowing shapes and design them so they direct the viewer's eye, keep them in the composition. I think this is a really fine and an intense scene. I think I would have pulled back a little bit so I could shrink and position the characters a little more, with a little more variety throughout the scene. Everything does feel very cramped into this foreground, where we have this guy here, and he's the midground, and then everything else is the background. So I would have played more with that scene depth. Adam, you got bikers?
We do now. Yeah, there we go.
Right. Do you agree, Adam? Like, does it feel too cramped and clustered in the foreground for you?
Yeah, well, you want to your composition should complement the characters in your scene. So if you've got all these intersections, it can create a bit of confusion. Be a little bit clearer and simplified with that, for sure.
Yeah, I think you could take a lot of liberties in regards to like simplify this, simplify that.
Yeah.
Just like Jasper was doing with a lot of his scenes there. We'll just look at that one more time. And you can see it in Eddie, but see like how suggested and simple, particularly an area where something is overlapping, he keeps it very, very simple.
Yeah.
And that's all you got to do.
That's it. Yeah.
All right.
I have to say one little comment too. The bear who's got an arrow skewered right in the middle of the business end of his brain. I love that. It's just he's got an arrow straight in his brain, and he still keeps at it. You got to respect his perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
All right, now we are on this one. Yes.
Yes.
As you have mentioned in your submission, this is a bit too much. Let's narrow things down, submit an image so I know what I'm looking at, and yeah, just a little too much. But you knew that. That's why you said it. We're still going to look at it because you put in a hell of amount of effort. But this is ridiculous.
For this type of a design process, don't make it a long vertical one. I would make more of a collage in your standard, your standard 1920 by 1080 or something like that. But try to fit it in like that. But design-wise, this is nice stuff. I mean, look at that. I mean, this is your format of your image made us go, what the fuck? But the quality of this work is outstanding. This is absolutely beautiful.
So let's focus on the illustration side of things then.
Yep.
See, my computer can't keep up with this right now.
Oh, yeah, it's lagging it. Okay.
All right. We'll look at it like that.
Yeah.
All right. I think the value structure may be a problem with this. Yep.
A little bit, yeah.
It gets a bit hard to read. Though your drawing, I think it's worth that your drawing, your actual draftsmanship and the design is really pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, excellent. You have very good illustration skills.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely beautiful. You've noticed, pay attention to areas, especially when you're looking in black and white, where the background and the foreground are competing with each other in terms of value, and that's something you see immediately. Now, sometimes you can salvage that with a color contrast, but
That
why
wasn't even
sell
happening.
yourself short, right?
You have the same colors in the background and the foreground, which is adding against your case. It's adding
Yeah.
up. They're working against you.
Yeah,
So if you had something like back here, and you even you reduce the detail and the, see, now these guys start to pop out because it works against the dark background.
yeah,
Or you have to make the background light, and you basically do the opposite and just darken immensely like everything else in the foreground. It for a pop illustration like this, I don't even know if that's the correct term to use, but for this style of illustration, that's what you want it to do, is to pop and to read really, really quickly. And how to do that is you want to be able to look at it really, really, really small and be like, know what's happening.
yeah.
But you have a lot of work here and a lot of stuff that's worth putting into a portfolio, like for your designs and stuff. Maybe adding some color and then just touching up the presentation as a whole and how you're going to present that. Like, you have a lot you're working with here. So
Yeah.
not by any means would I say any of this is a waste of time.
I think you really have a knack for this particular style. I mean, I've been a fan of this particular quality of work, this type of illustration, my whole life. Ever since I was 10 years old, and you have it. This to me is playing with your values and colors, getting a little bit more readability. But as far as your design process and all of that kind of stuff, I'm sitting there going, "Wow, this is really nice. I'm really enjoying this work."
See, then, like, if you wanted to do, like, some spot highlights on the character's eye or something like that, you could come back in and control it, very, very directly and get whatever you want in terms of shapes to really pop and read. Which it makes the world of difference, and it all comes back, again, to your value planning and structure in that regard. So just think of it almost like a graphic designer, where you have these areas and you want to see, like, okay, how can I make this work with as simple, like, or as little tools as possible.
You know what else you can do is, the thing narratively, what I was thinking as soon as I saw this particular illustration is that these are equals going head to head, right? This is a battle of, like, the huge monster versus the powerful magical vampire type of scenario, right? One's bigger and more. It's kind of like the lichen versus the vampire. They both have their own strengths and weaknesses, but they're head to head. So visually, you want to represent that through your values and readability. If one overreads the other, it gives off a sense that one is more powerful, and you don't want to do that, right? So you want to kind of think of, how can I plan my values so that both dominate that image equally. So it's just something to get, just some food for thought there.
Great stuff, though.
Yeah.
Really great. And these designs are fabulous up there. But if we were looking at each and every one, we'd be here till next week. So we're going to move on out of respect to everybody else. But great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah. All right. What do we got here? Now, something. Who's this? I recognize the style.
Adrian.
Ah, yes. Okay. All right. So, this immediately grabs me. This brings me right back to my
Phantom Train.
Contra days. I've got the game Contra in my head right now for some reason. This is so cool.
I like the idea. A lot. And your design up here is amazing.
Yeah.
But as an entire image, there's some design problems. And hopefully we can look at and address those. For me, it's that you have your horizon here, and virtually within this space, half the image, there's nothing at all that's adding to the scene or bringing or engaging us as the viewer. So by design, you'd want to fill blanks like that. So if you have a pole here, work it in perspective. Add a few more poles. What else is at train stations? There's ropes, there's benches, maybe there's some kind of fantasy doom machines. You need to fill and design the entirety of the space so that it works and is very interesting. Maybe there's like a raised sidewalk here, with some designs. I don't know. Maybe there's some other crazy these organic and buildings. Maybe there's like a pile of skulls around. See what I mean? Like it just feels very undercooked because this part feels unfinished.
Yeah. Something I very often share with my students is, and this is a very good example of this, is imagine a stage, an actual theatrical stage. You're going to shine the flashlight, and you're going to use up, you want the character, you want the actor on the stage, if they only use up a small amount of the stage, you want to isolate it with lighting, right? And you're not going to have a person standing on the right side of the stage, but there's nothing going on anywhere else. It's just empty space. Unless somebody walks in through the other side of the stage, you're going to want to isolate the viewer's attention by perhaps vignetting it with some shadow or whatever the case might be. If you're not, get rid of the stage, right? Crop it and cut it out so that you're not wasting space, basically.
And that's part of the problem too. Is like we couldn't see the character either.
Yeah.
So if we start changing the scene up and trimming the fat off it, so to speak.
Yeah, and bring him to the bottom third. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oops. There you go. Maybe get that emblem on the top of the door back in, and that should be good.
You just have to like rescale things. Like rescale the whole background. But see, you start trimming the fat off, and you can work the entirety of the design in. You'll have a much stronger image.
You see why? But when Tyler did this, what he also did was by cutting out the bottom, he brought the character to the base, emphasizing more of the door. So now you're feeling more of the grandeur of the door, versus before you lost that because there was more ground than there was wall. So this knocks the balance off and puts emphasis on something in particular.
You also have a really nice opportunity here to use some like contrasting or complementary colors to add some kind of interior elements that are illuminating up some of these forms, and you can actually get some design in there. So like if this is an open doorway, maybe you put or start to hint at, this is a really loose way to block this in, but you can start to emphasize some of this character as well by
there you go,
working out some elements in there, and then you have the light kind of bouncing through, and now you use that color here, but adding it, sprinkle it in here and there throughout the scene as accents, and you'll have something really, really powerful.
Yeah. And be wary of having an entire image that's all one hue. Basically, it's basically a very very purple, very monochromatic image, which can work, but in this particular context, it's a little bit too heavy on the purple, right? Try to vary it up a little bit.
Omega Weapon by Sergio.
All right. Then we're getting some serious creature design here. That's pretty cool. Now here, kind of what I'm seeing here is the sketch. There's a lot of strength in that sketch, but when you make the translation into color and value, that's where you got a little bit lost, right? And I think that might be more of a technical, just familiarizing yourself with painting digitally.
Yeah.
So, just getting a little bit of practice, more of the hands-on kind of stuff. Because I find, as far as the colors and rendering, it kind of it suffers a little bit there, right? Yeah.
So your quick fix is actually, hold on, edit. That's how I feel like we're doing. Like we had a quote for some carpentry work and some general maintenance stuff on the house, and it was like he gave us 3 different price points for everything. You got like the quick fix, the long-term fix, and like the Band-Aid. And so like a lot of these, what we do is, since we're trying to do around 3 minutes per person, is basically the quick fix. And there's of course much longer term and more robust fixes to a lot of this, but if we were just to like make this read and stand out as it is, for me that would be first separating the background from the foreground. It's really hard to tell, not necessarily because of the value, but we want to create more of that contrast. I feel this is a very dark and foreboding area. That there's supposed to be a good amount of contrast in an area like this. So I'm Actually, that's the wrong. I want to do this one. So we kind of scale down a lot of the values. And then if we select the inverse. Where is it? I'm so...
Control or Command Shift I. That should inverse it.
Dragging ass today, Adam.
No worries.
So you reduce it, and even if it gets too hazy like that, though, I could still work it and balance it so that it has that separation. And then you can go back and add any other secondary colors you want to it, but it'll read. This represents more closely what your value structure was here, and then you can get the you can come back and get your intensity out of it. That's not so much the problem. See, wherever you had it.
Yeah. Now we can feel that lava, right?
The other thing design-wise that I have an issue with is this is a tangent. This is just here, and it's riding the entirety of your canvas wall. It's super distracting. My advice would be to get rid of it. You don't need it. If something is not adding anything to your scene, just cut it. Can it up. And again, the long-term fix, because I see what you were going for, would be to have something kind of like what Hans did, is have your characters really large and in focus in the foreground, and you crop them all. So I'm going to roughly just select these as a shape for now. So if we were to this is really bad right here. If we were to copy and paste this, and this is the long fix, you make them larger so we can really see, we're in the perspective. We're part of the party member right behind them. You switch their rhythm. So you have some that are bigger, some that are further. You got to create different shapes with them, so it looks they're staggered. Before they're beep, 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 you need to switch that up with the spacing and the size. Then you can have the character basically in the background. And if we were to take just him, yada yada yada, something like that. Again, copy and paste. Where the heck is it? Make him the towering, menacing creature that he is, and now we're in the perspective of the characters. You can create some overlaps and stuff and design the whole scene around that. You'll have something we're in the moment. Because my issue with this is we're so far separated from the characters and from the scene. It's we could see basically the monster coming a mile away. It takes the tension right out of the scene.
Yeah.
And then the other issue, of course, the characters are just resting at the very, very bottom of the canvas. So design-wise, that hurts it a bit. Yeah,
it's very two-dimensional. Plus, it's dark on dark. So it wasn't until Tyler actually selected it that I actually saw they were there. I didn't even notice them. So if you want to draw attention, you remember dark on light, light on dark. Create some contrast there, right?
George, right. I seen this in the Hangout the other Monday night. He's working his ass off on this.
Yeah, this is cover art right here.
Yep.
Yeah, really nice.
This is for Legacy of Kain, the novelization.
Very, very cool.
Great detail.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really polished idea, too. If I saw this on the box of a game back in the 1980s and 90s, I would totally buy it. You totally sold me on this, as far as that's concerned. Yeah, absolutely.
I would maybe we mentioned this a few times this month. I just create a little bit more of that separation with the background and the character. Some way. I don't know the first answer for it. I don't know if I'd even call this. Oh gosh, I just botched that. I don't know if this is the best solution, but I'd create a little bit more of that separation and maybe add a little saturation here or there, or create some underlighting on this character. I don't know. For me, part of him also is kind of begging for that underlighting. But I would just basically reduce the contrast on the background. You can keep it dark. That's cool. But I would keep the contrast out of it. I'd find some way to balance that out.
Yeah.
So he stands out a lot more. Then if you really want to get crazy and technical with it, you create the I think no matter No, any way I illustrate this right now is going to just look terrible, but let's just do the shorthand version, right, Adam? You do a little bit of light,
Yeah.
catching under here, underneath the knuckles.
You see what he's doing here is like we have the lighting coming from the back, but you always have, this is something that I see very common. It's worth mentioning here. A lot of artists make the mistake of just backlighting something. And when you do that, essentially what you're doing is flattening everything in the shadow, which is essentially the whole front of the figure. So if you find you're doing that, you don't want backlight to be your main light unless you have something to define the form in the front as well. Be careful with that. People get all carried away with backlight because they see dark into it, right? So just be wary of that kind of stuff. Yeah, look at how that completely balances out and brings out the rest of the form and creates a nice sense of three-dimensionality there. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he's going to be menacing. Of course, just don't do it as bluntly or carelessly as I did, but you have a lot of opportunity to make, some really awesome forms pop and kind of even change the intensity of the scene. So you see some of the heat in the blade. Imagine now you see like hints of smoke in the background with maybe a few of these. I'm trying to find the like a few floating embers just like whistling by. And again, this is just a quick demonstration. This is not how you do embers whispering by, but you could have that as an effect now, and all of a sudden it's kind of really amplifying things up a bit. Yeah.
And it also justifies the smoky background you've got now too, right? So just that there's an interior firelight going on that's creating a nice sense of atmospheric fog.
Lastly, for me, Adam, I just beef up some of the armor on the shoulders. He's a really buff dude.
Yeah.
And the armor I think is just too attached to him. I'd say I'd just beef it up. Give him some form, give us something to look at.
A little bit of the blizzard treatment there.
Yeah, a little bit of the blizzard effect. Like, they go too far in most cases, but if you get somewhere middle ground for something like this, it'd be perfect.
Great
job.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Great
Beautiful.
job.
Big thumb up there. All right. What do we got next?
The Doom Train redesign.
I haven't seen this one close up yet.
Nope. But okay, so here's the boss. You fight him. It's literally a train.
You get
a character like that in a muscle shirt. One of his moves, he just fucking suplexes the thing. It's an old school wrestling move on this whole train. It's friggin' one of my favorite parts of the game.
I remember this. Oh my god, this is so funny.
Yeah, it's a meme. I think it's a meme out there.
Yeah.
Being able to suplex the train.
God, I'm crying.
I think what works best for me out of all your design stuff on this is this drawing in particular here. Because I think there's something that just kind of slightly flattened it out with your color treatment.
Oh, it's all warm. It's all copper warm.
And there's lack of contrast, too. So again, if I were to select this, let me go grab your shadow color in there, which is basically this. Let me hit OK. All right. So it's going to try to do that. Let me just deselect that guy. All right. So this is what I mean. Like, if you're going to add some tone to that, make it pop. And that's of course. This is an easy fix. You just work that contrast. This is like the first thing. Make it really pop. See, it's already popping on the page a lot more. And then sprinkle in some cooler colors or something. Yeah, like some blues and
screaming for some
green.
Some extra contrast there.
It just needs... See, I'm adding a little bit of the magenta in it there. At least that's a different color. Yours was so monochromatic, that wasn't helping your cause. So if I go grab that, now I can start to add some greens and some blues into there. It'll help add a lot of dimensionality to it. But design wise, I think it's pretty cool. I think for me personally, if I were to redesign the Doom Train, I like that you have these iconic stacks here. Like that's making a statement. Yeah. I would totally I'd look up some of what's his name, Sean Andrew Murray stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen his illustrations, Adam.
Yes.
But get some crazy face on the front of that, something that you don't forget. Like, give the Doom Train some character, like mechanical, old, some kind of face. I feel on that would really sell the idea, and then you could build mechanically the parts into it, even to a lesser degree, like how Hull's Moving Castle does a lot of things. Because, a lot of this detail and the shapes with the forms, they get lost in all this information. You want to make something bold, memorable, and iconic. And I think it's the emphasis on that bold what will really help your design here.
Yeah.
You have your research in, that's very important. But think of like what makes these old trains design-wise so cool and iconic. It's the simplicity and the boldness of those shapes. These things are literally like a bullet.
Yeah.
You got that shape, it's running in there. You have this shape here, and then you have this shape. It's basically 3 shapes, but it's super elegant. And that's what it was trying to be. Think of what your design goal with the redesign is. Play that up. Is it a monstrous train? Is it an elegant train? Is it a cute or friendly version of the Doom train? You could do it up, but I'd play it up as a motif so that you could have these certain elements, these certain shapes, these certain rhythms. Imagine even like you have an eye here. I don't even know if that's an eye, but imagine if you had some kind of hideous monster eyepiece thing here with like a skull thing. Like that's something that sticks in people's heads and they'll remember it. But this is a great submission. I'm glad someone tackled the Doom train. That's what I was honestly hoping.
Yeah,
when I
so
set
cool,
this
man.
challenge up.
This so takes me back seeing this. And very ambitious industrial design there. I mean, look at the work that you put into that. It's beautiful stuff.
If you want to work on the draftsmanship, of course, next time something to do would be to go back and emphasize some line weight when I have certain elements and objects that overlap. That will help add some depth to your drawing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But keep it up. That's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right, here. This was another case, I believe, when I did open the Doom Gazer here. This was like 500 resolution and it almost broke my system.
It was almost 10,000 pixels in size.
Let me give you as a personal tip. If you're working for something like this and working on the web, and if you're not at like that high level detail, and this isn't quite at that high level detail yet, keep the file size small. It'll first force you to work out the larger problems and kind of bring up the image evenly until maybe down the road you'll deem like, okay, I need to get some skin pores on the guy or draw little subtleties in the hair and show some subsurface scattering on the skin tone. Like maybe then up-res it to like 300. But 500 just seems so obscene as a file size to be working. Unless, of course, you have some mega computer that's like as big as a city block mainframe and you just want to do that for the sake of it, go for it. All right, so this looks like it's a boss design. They're on the bridge of an airship here, and they're doing battle with him.
Nice. Yeah. Well, first thing, I would mention this right out of the gate. I love the composition. You really nailed that. You get a nice sense of scale. Be careful of the black monster. A lot of people do this. You basically fill your page with black and then extract a few different forms out of it. And what that does is it immediately destroys the painting. You don't get color, you don't get depth, you don't get anything. It's just these stark contrasts everywhere. And
black.
It's not attractive. It just doesn't look good. So
you
don't want to work from black after, right? You don't want to work from black and then extract. You want to start with your midtones and push and pull with your values after.
So what would this look like in a mid-tone range? If we first desaturate it, it's not going to do much because most of it's black anyway. But if we have this, you have the right idea that you have your monster and your character popping out at us. That's a good thing. But what's the bad thing is there's no depth whatsoever in the image. This looks like a graphic of a skull for like a 90s like metal band shirt.
Yeah, it would look good on a t-shirt.
It's just a graphic. Yeah. Which is always a time and a place for that. But for something like this, you'd want to see where the character begins, where it ends, where the background is, etc., etc. So again, the first thing to do that is to reduce the contrast in the background. These lightning bolts are awesomely intense. They're cool. So, like, again, the quick fix is just to reduce that contrast.
Look at that,
like this. Even on the lightning a bit. Tone it down just a bit. This immediately added a lot of depth to your scene. The other problem, design-wise, for me, of course, is that tangent right there. Give the guy a little space to breathe. he's gonna nudge and break the top of the canvas. The other thing another fix would be to grab the ship bridge itself, just bring it up into the scene like this. This will be a case of recropping and in that regard could fix a lot of that. So if you bring that up, bring this in, trim some of this stuff off the side, give him just a little more room to breathe on the top. That's all he needs, just a little bit of room. See, we trimmed a lot. We're now invested in the scene here, and then you can create, of course, any other atmospheric effects and stuff, because you want now to separate him from the midground.
Mm-hmm.
And
notice how the black on black makes them both look like they're on the same plane visually. So you want to make that pop a little bit more.
Get some
there
of that atmosphere going on in there, and use that. Keep it just really dark and graphic around the focal points.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can think of how to make the bridge of the airship a graphic as well. But this is a really cool idea. I think you're getting there, definitely. But keep some of those basic design principles and elements in mind when just designing the overall scene from a sketch phase, sketch phase itself.
Yeah. And from a gamer's perspective, I like how you took an old concept and you modernized the boss fight type of approach to it. So you have this feels very much like a WoW boss or something like that. You captured that, but you took it from an old thing, and I think you really respected that in terms of the design. So well done.
All right, we have some character design.
Yes.
Awesome, Isaac. These are great. These are really fabulous. I mean, I like these a lot. You have great presentation, fantastic presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were mentioning that before we started the lesson. Yeah.
And we could see some of your inspiration. Totally unnecessary to post those, but I love it. It's great.
I like how you take like a 32 by 32 pixel character and you develop it into this full illustration. I love that. Well, one of the things I would mention, just in terms of something that especially pops on Sabin, Rene Figaro, if I'm pronouncing that right, is his skin tones are very uniform, like warm, like brown tones on brown tones, and that really flat. It basically looks like you just took a marker and you overlaid one color. So you want to get some shifts in color. Look up skin tones online.
Subtle stuff.
And you want transitions from warm to cool. So under the armpits, the shadow under the neck, all that kind of stuff. You want to make a transition from one hue to another, preferably from a warmer to a cool tone.
Since he has the cooler background and the warm shadows on the character, I would add a cooler tone for the skin tones hitting him. Mm-hmm. That would be my quickest fix.
Yeah.
And that's the matter of getting some like blues and some greens, whatever kind of color you want to associate with coolness, and getting that into the character. I mean, this is kind of helping it out a lot in terms of that range. So we have now some blues in there, and then grab something like for the transition colors, get a transition as well. So if these are like some of the midtones on the character, if I select just that range like that, and then I add some greens or something to it. The color needs a little flavor and a little spice in it to go a long way. Because your rendering is really good. And your designs are really good. But some of the rendering skin is particularly challenging. So even getting some greens, and this is starting to nudge it in that right direction. So instead of having one uniform tone throughout, as Adam said, now we have a cool, we have a transition, we have a shadow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The same with you could do the same with the select the color like on the pants as well. So if this is the pants, right, like that, I want to just select those pants, and you want to add a little bit of a cooler tone. I'm gonna try to do this without butchering too much of it. Where's my paintbrush here? So if I color pick that, see, we have a very warm mustard yellow. If we find a cooler version of that, so something maybe we take a little saturation out, we nudge it a little bit more with this green range, we can see we could start to get really nice variety in tones on the pants. Get a little bit of green in there, but it'll feel really cool. And like a really nice color to offset a lot of the warm shadows with.
Yeah, look at that.
Any other fixes or comments on these characters, Adam? I really love them. Locke in particular is awesome.
I think really just the uniform temperature is the only thing that really jumped out at me. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, I find these very successful.
It's something,
designs.
Very fixable, and I great presentation overall. I love all of these characters. They'll
Yeah.
always be in my heart.
I would have fun playing these characters. I would pick them in a game. Like that makes me
If you
want
want
to
to
play.
continue
Right?
making yourself a nice portfolio out of these and making a mini project, do all 15 cast members, or I think it's 12 to 15 cast members. Do a nice lineup. When you do
Yeah.
something really robust on such a popular old game like this, depending on the sites and where you post it, people take notice, and that can get some reblogging and stuff, and get you some traffic. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what really blew up Dave Raposa. If you think back to where he really started gaining some of his traction, is when he did really awesome redesigns of fan art. Which is why we wanted to do this challenge. It's such a great way to work on your skills, take something familiar, add some design, practicing rendering. It's such a great way to learn and train. All right, I'm not very happy with this, but I have no confidence in my designs, but it was hard to... Well, Tom, let's give Tom a round of applause for submitting it, giving it a try. I mean, that's the spirit, man.
And we'll be able to help you out with it. That's the whole
Yes.
point. So, if you keep yourself quiet in your basement, there's nobody else that can give you feedback on it. So, just don't put it on a trolley website where they're going to just bash you for it. That's not what we're about. But yeah, so
I think
very
you have
cool.
a great start, honestly. You have a really cool, a really simple picture to handle, and that's the way to do it. If you're not confident with things, take things in sizable chunks, very manageable for yourself. You have a single character, or rather a direct angle, and that's a great place to start.
Yeah, yeah. And you really did, like, I'm looking at what you've got here, and you very much translated old school into new school very nicely. I can definitely see where this comes from, and I love that about it. From an artistic perspective, here's something that can help you out, and that's to beware the texture monster, as I believe Chris Oatley said in one of his podcasts. Notice the heavy texture and the high contrast of the clouds in the background. Because the clouds aren't the main focal point, they're not what the story's about, it's about the ship, not the clouds. Wash that all out. Makes a nice blue sky, or knock it back so you don't get this heavy jarring contrast. And what that'll do is put the emphasis back on the boat.
I changed
on
the
airship.
scale of this a little bit too. Bring the character a little further up.
Yeah.
But overall, this is really good. And then think of how you could do levels. So maybe there's now let me grab a different brush. This is not the brush for drawing or highlighting things. Okay, let's get some hot pink. Yes. Added a little bit of a stairway coming down here like that. So now he's the captain of a bridge. Have this as a lower level. So again, if we were to take this and add a little bit of a step, a little bit of a drop off there. That way it give you some elevation changes to go down
nice,
here
yeah.
stepwise, which makes it a little more interesting design-wise. To and from. You have added railing here. Some kind of railing or pattern or motif. Something like that. Add a secondary bar. So this is too big of if this is some kind of warship or something like that, it's going to want to be reinforced. So think of look up rivets, look up designs, look up industrial engineering. Think of what you would need to reinforce that. Then again, you could layer on top of that some of your designs, or maybe there's a sigil or an emblem on the window, and that will help bring some of that detail up as well. Second thing you could do is again add designs and elements to the floor. So if this is think of where you could break up and segment the different textures on things. So maybe you have a cut line in your floor here, and you have a big metal beam, again, because it's riveted and it's going to be sectioned. Then you could have a different pattern of the floor going here like this. Maybe you have a different texture right here, and then again another walkway. So you're taking a very bland area, the ground is such a huge part of it like this, but you're subdividing it, so you're adding a little bit of detail and context to that.
Like what you did here, which is it makes perfect sense, is that you wanted to replicate that kind of brick / pixelated tileable floor, right? Sorry about the lawnmower outside. But you can take artistic liberty. Remember, this is a redesign. Oh, for God's sakes, you have to do that now. Anyways, but you can take some artistic liberty and redesign, modernize it, right? Have fun with that. That's the point. You were trying to copy the old design verbatim, which in this particular case, when you take it from a 2D to a 3D context, doesn't translate well, right? So, yeah, just something
I was looking for examples. I didn't find one off the top of my head. But that's fine. I think this is going in the right direction.
Yeah.
The other major issue with it, and that's a problem with the older games, is they weren't able to dynamically light things. The lighting in something like this is always very, very static. So pick a light direction, and then draw it and bring it into your design. So if it's only illuminated by the exterior, by the sky, everything on the inside here won't have any lights on. So you could take it. Again, this is going to there we go. Shut the lights off, then glaze. Bring the lights back into it. There's going to see hints of blues on here. Maybe you'll have a red or yellow light on the interior side of things, but yeah, just apply lighting to your. The biggest issue with it, besides the design elements and stuff, is like that there's just a lack of lighting in it, and that's fixable, and you could work it and design it. You have a mid-tone approach, and now you just add all the fun fixings, basically, and draw and paint the light on your scene. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Hope this helps you.
Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. I think you did a lot of good with this piece of artwork. Keep posting your stuff. It's really cool.
All right, Martin, how you doing?
Look at this. Very nice.
Awesome, Martin. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
I like these challenges different because everybody they can upload a very specific reference for what they were trying to capture. I got to find a way to bring that element into the future challenges, Adam.
Yeah, I like this too. It's a lot of fun. I love how you can take something because it's so minimalist in terms of the information you've got. It allows a lot of space for interpretation, which is fun. I love seeing where you guys are taking this.
We got to do more of these. I love this challenge in particular. This is so good.
Yeah.
Okay, for your illustration, I think this is great. I think you turned the mob into some flying monkey.
Into a flying monkey sheep? Yeah.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
So, I think overall the design, you have a really cool dynamic angle. You've captured a sense of action. And this is intimidating as heck.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest issue with it as an illustration now is that it's lacking polish and rendering. It's just much too harsh in some areas.
Mm-hmm.
You see, too blunt of brushstrokes back here. The rocks feel unfinished. You have the right idea of simplifying areas, but there's I don't know how to word this right. There's a classy way of simplifying it, and then there's just an unfinished way of things. I don't know, Adam. How would you add to this?
Well, actually, I could reference a new video, and this is not I wasn't paid to promote his work. He has a good video that describes it well. Marco Bucci, if you check him out on YouTube, he has a video, one of his latest ones, where he talks about graphic shapes and how to simplify large amounts of information just using your values. But what you've got here, if you actually take this to black and white, there's a lot of white, black, and it creates a very hard to read image. It becomes very hypercharged with contrast.
You're
so
right.
What you want to do is group your values and think, where's my light, where's my medium, where's my dark, and try to group everything in a nice way. One area you might see this is if you look at your foreground character, your monkey sheep, and you look at the background, you see how they compete with each other. Mm-hmm. Right? But the successful section of this piece is where you have the rocks and your background beast. That silhouette reads very nicely. So what you'd want to do is take that monkey sheep and maybe take the rocks and move them up to create more of a backdrop for the higher value foreground character. So it's light on dark, dark on light, a bit of a yin-yang type of idea, right? That would definitely help a lot.
So yeah, getting more of that contrast.
Yeah. Look at how that reads nicely.
In it like that. Of course, I'm going to play up the simplification of all that, kind of like so. Get it nice and dark around him, and then fade off design wise. I'd keep this as simple gradient in the background. Will really that way it's kind of lighter up here, and honestly, you can even go. Let's just say I took the time to actually blend and smudge all of this. I'm going to take a little bit of, and maybe I'll do a quick pass on it. Not perfectly blended, obviously. But let's say you take that idea and then, again, you grab even in here and in here and in here. So the lower area, you can add some of the darker value to it. Kind of help a lot. So just grabbing a little bit of that and figuring out where, or keep the light coming. Where's the light coming? It's over there, right? So slightly darken a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's all about the subtleties
Yeah.
at that stage.
You see how the static, the energy, the real drive of the painting is now the characters themselves, and the background isn't competing with it. So you don't have heavy texture everywhere. It's just where you need it, at the business end of your painting, basically.
Business end. So then you could take this, and when we realize that, when you simplify it like that in tone, the colors you're popping it more with color than value, which is a technique. But I'd create again more of that separation there, so that if this is your value range, you could stretch it up a little bit further here, so you can have this, as that graphic shape that's hitting that's hitting the face. Maybe that even you have the right idea of thinking these areas of light and dark as a graphic. Keep going with that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're on the right path. Just jog a little faster, a little harder. You'll get there. Because see that you can get like, oh yeah, we could create a graphic here, and then remember too the two things you have: cast shadows, which are hard, and then if you have like the form on like the arm, form shadows are soft. So you can have these areas of hard lights, and then soft transitions. So that would be a cast shadow, form shadow, and this would be form shadow, and then you can create a really dynamically an image with really really nice dynamic range of shapes and contrast.
Yeah.
But good stuff.
Yeah,
like it.
Very good stuff. Very nicely done.
Antonio, he was a guest a few episodes ago.
Yes, indeed. He's been a subject of much discussion.
All right, Antonio. Next time, follow the damn format and include a screenshot so I know what you're designing. I love you, man.
My critique is make it better. Make it less bad, okay? Next. I'm not going to waste time.
You know the deal. These are great.
Beautiful design.
Great design views.
You know what I was talking about this with Tyler before. You know what this is very reminiscent of for me, and something I really like is the Sunwell Plateau armor. If you played WoW, it had a real
Dork
elegance to it. Yeah.
Dork
It has a nice, totally, yeah. But it has a nice elegance to your designs. I love that about it. I love the little wiry.
I'm not one to judge Adam. I got my Witcher statues all over the place.
I'm getting mine next week, so there you go. Yeah.
So pro. I like these a lot. This is sidetrack. A mount design.
Yeah.
For this back. These are great. These are really nicely rendered. I'm trying to enlarge in this and...
Yeah, I'm curious. I think so. One of the things that confused us when we were looking at it is what are you referencing? Yeah, nice designs, but where's the context for that? So if we see where you actually got these from, we probably have a stronger appreciation for your design, right? Because we don't have a point of reference. Otherwise, they just look like random designs to us. But
one sec, Adam.
My
computer's locked up.
Nice.
Another point of edit. Shit. Come on. Oh, here we go. We're back. I'm adding a bar at the bottom, so too I want to keep the designs.
How big is this file? What's the size of it? Is it lagging you?
It might be the size.
Image size.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, 78 is a bit big, yeah. Yeah, that should be a bit easier to handle there.
It's people sabotaging me.
There you go.
Oh yeah, we're back. So yeah, these are really good. I like a lot of the designs. Really cool presentation.
Yeah, I'd make a comment, just an anatomical, as much as anatomy as we actually have. We have handy, considering he's a skeleton. You have a pose where he's got a very kind of you've got a bit of foreshortening happening with his hand. Mm-hmm. When you have foreshortening, sometimes you have to exaggerate scale a little bit because you kept a neutral scale to his hand and arm, it looks as if he's got really stubby arms.
A little T-Rex.
So you want to make the hand bigger. If you look at the way I'm working with the camera, notice how I bring my hand up to the camera. Makes me look big. You have something more like this. You want to go something more like that to get that feeling of close and far.
Look at him. Now he's got a power arm. Hell yeah. Feel it.
Look at how Frazetta will approach dynamic depth that way in his pose. That'll definitely help. You can see a bit of that happening with the foreground, background foot. Be careful with the background foot. Might be a little bit on the far side. It almost makes it look like the scale of that background foot's a bit off. There's something about the placement of that. Oh yeah, you know what it is? Antonio, Mr. CrossFit trainer who took my anatomy class, we're missing the insertion point, the actual socket of the greater trochanter in the pelvis, right? It's going to be lower down on the pelvis. You actually inserted it up at the hip at the iliac crest. So just be weary about that. That's
I
one
like a
of the
little
things
fix
that's
like
up that
that.
pelvis.
Go a
Yeah,
long way.
there you go.
Really
See?
cool design. I
Yeah.
in terms of the presentation, I kind of like what you were doing here. You made the silhouette very easy to read, and which is I think really important to do on a skeletal figure like this. I'd pop a simple graphic more so than this with even less color just behind him, so we could really see him as a shape pop out.
Yeah.
But I like this mount design a lot. Really cool. I mean, probably I'd guess you under rendered some things in here. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but a little more rendering in there I think will go a long way. But this is great. I love it, man.
Yeah. You know what help a little bit just to balance that design of the beast is the background arm. You've got the background foreground arm like this. I would move that background arm up to make more of a V shape to the overall stance. Give him a bit more of an aggressive stance
right through there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have it even
Create
go
a bit of
little,
negative space for the
higher.
Yeah.
Like that, but awesome stuff.
Yeah, very nice. As always, beautiful work.
Kiko, what's this? Kiko art. Oh my goodness.
Very ambitious piece here.
The magic, the final boss, Kefka. This is what it looks like in the game for anyone who doesn't know. This is the original concept drawing. Each stage is the main villain as kind of like ascending to like godhood as you battle him. So it's really freaking intense and very Japanese.
Yeah.
And so it looks like we have a segment here at the
look
top.
at that.
I think that's the topish. Maybe it's the middle. I don't know. It's a part of the boss. That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
This person took a challenge. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Wow, no kidding.
Color mood. Okay, let's just look at this. This is so much. We have one of these files.
Cold. I liked warmer colors, but still needed something. Moved the middleman power lower, so it was not line vertical. Line of focal point, line better line movement on image. Okay. I'm
gonna reduce the file size by half so my computer can handle it. Oh right. Let's dig in.
Okay. Right out of the gate, because you're translating some obnoxiously overcolored, textured, old school art religiously, you're actually copying that. You have captured the spirit of the original art, but from an illustration perspective, if anybody was to walk by and see this, it would be way too heavy on the eyes. So you'd want to take that. You can still have that very celestial, religious type of background approach to it, but knock it back. You know, you want.
Yeah, I'd make it lighter with the elements here darker, or vice versa. Obviously, in the original, the background was darker, and it worked. The background was very, very dark, but it worked because the characters are really brightly lit sprites that didn't have any. They weren't, there's no lighting applied to them or anything. So it's like a cartoon. So if you're doing an illustrated version of that, it'd probably be best to definitely simplify and lighten that background. It's too noisy right now, which is I think part of the issue a bit.
As much as we love the original art, as much as we reminisce it, it's ugly as shit, right? You're referencing something that's hideously ugly artistically. You have to do something about that.
Like, the design of the beast is amazing, but it doesn't translate to illustration, is what Adam is saying.
Yeah, visually the colors and contrasts are like, oh, God, right? But if you look at the actual line art, the stuff in the middle section of your references there, look at how nice that works versus the stuff that's actually graphically on screen on the left side of the image. So you can see that you can salvage it. You can take something that might have worked in an old school game and make it live up to a modern standard visually. But yeah, you copied it. You captured the essence, but right? It's kind of like the blind leading the blind. You don't want to reference something. The reference can kill your image for you, right? There you go. Look at that. Right away, that immediately.
Just remove, see those lights back there are just too light.
Yeah.
Get it all on you want the background to kind of read as a mid-tone, so that with this, if we select the inverse and we kind of grade it at a darker range, so something like that, kind of like we did with the other image, you can pinpoint your highlights where you need them and get it to really pop and read. Because it was just much too difficult to read in that regard beforehand. So yeah, this sapped a lot of your colors out. I mean, that was kind of my attention so you can apply them back. Like if you want to go with the yellow tone on everything, that's definitely doable. You could just you start adding colors and select. We select that, so we get your shape.
Yeah. Now you can bring light back to define some forms, right?
Yeah,
But you keep that colorful energy going on. You get that very colorful energy, which is what which is what's going to bring people back and say, "Wow, you really captured it," right? Yeah.
You have a lot right going on here. We're just picking out the big problems, so you can focus them on, and then kind of finesse the smaller part. The other thing I would say that you probably definitely want to work on and practice is your materials. There's not a good indication of them and how light reacts and works. Like if you have something metallic, I guess for instance here, like you're gonna have some really intense highlighting, going on like that, and the specular highlights will be different than how it reacts to a person. Like I wouldn't, you don't highlight things the same way, you don't render shadows and forms the same way. So it's all now that you've drawn this, do some research and material studies to figure out how each element individually will look and work. And then it'll work. And you also notice too with this is that it's a massive tower. You could suggest more depth in the scene too if you were to get into the background and imply some hoses or some other massive element just to create a little bit more depth, in the scene, like in regards to the shapes and the rhythm as well. Oh goodness. My computer is still catching up. That happens. So see, have that overlap. That way, if it's a bit darker behind him, you can pop him out with some light hitting the form. Or like if you have other hoses or mechanical beasts, like implied, all kind of coming up and reaching through the clouds. You need this kind of works in a very graphic sense. It could be like an album cover or something. But if you want to treat it as an illustration, you want to create some kind of flow in it.
Yeah. Think three-dimensionally. Yeah, because Tyler's nailing it here. It's everything that you've got is kind of placed on that mid-ground plane. What Tyler's bringing in is background, foreground, so that you can actually imagine traveling around this form and see it in three dimensions.
Imagine like having like hoses and body parts and stuff like reaching up into the foreground.
Yeah.
Okay, it's twisting and turning and it coming in and out at us, and maybe you see like other body parts or sculptures kind of there, and it'll bring us into the scene and make us a participant on the sculpture. Again, perspective's the huge thing. If we're looking up at all this, we want to be able to see like the inside right of his mouth. Yeah, the inside, the top roof of the underside of this slightly. Everything feels, I think, if you add a little bit, even like fake a little 2.5D forms in your scene, it's going to go a long way and work a lot for it. So seeing underneath all of those, underneath that, etc. And then you could work out these values in the design problems, and then you could work on getting some awesome colors in there. But I like it.
Yeah,
this is great.
Me too.
I'm glad you tackled probably the most challenging thing to tackle. I would set aside a good month and a half to work on something like this. Is crazy. Yeah. Props to you. Alright, I am recording this now for the third time because I'm having a bad day. But anyway, you guys, I'm adding you in because we missed you for whatever reason. Your post, Matt, wasn't displaying. Nathan's, yours got lost in the shuffle. I apologize, but let's talk about this. Your main figures and your setup with your flow, your gesture of your image here, is a bit flat and it's a bit stiff because of some basic design core principles. Here, if we have all the shapes, if we break them apart, aside from the guy in the foreground, which I do think is a good idea to have a guy closer, the other two are pretty much the same size and they're in the background along the same line. And they follow the same flow and rhythm. It comes off as a bit flat and stiff. So here I'll try to show you an alternative approach to kind of fixing this. We want to create something that has a dynamic rhythm and a very kind of smooth, natural flow with eye movement for the viewer when we're talking about creating illustrations like this. So I'm putting the cliffs kind of on the same setup as you did. I'm trying to mirror your setup the same way, that you had it. I'm just trying to put my 2 cents in. So let's get these Magitech armors here. I don't know exactly what they look like, so we're gonna do the shorthand version. My little guys. Let's have your guy in the foreground, not half tucked in the corner. He was cropped really weirdly. So let's just see some of the top of his shoulders, the back of the head, and we have one in the distance, kind of looking up and at us. So we have 3 different characters. There's a bit of an overlap, or you could create more of an overlap with them, and we'll put our city, our secondary focal point, in the background. And that you could put that higher or lower. It doesn't need to be around the horizon line. This is just my first take at it. Of course, first takes are never the best, but I do feel that this is a step in the right direction if you were to reevaluate the design. So right now I'm putting in a few gestures and a few different lines to create a good flow and rhythm to that city. So everything is working around our major compositional elements, and everything takes a backseat to that story moment. That's why I'm just highlighting a few cliffs. We drag and drop down things. There's a lot of different ways to explore. So I'm not entirely positive how many drawings you went to get to your final result. But a good illustration, a good drawing, takes many revisions and many passes. Don't shortchange that. There's just a lot of fundamental problems with this that root back to the drawing. So work on that. Work on your drawing before your painting. All right, Matt, this is going good so far. I like this. It's a great start. I feel the composition's a little bit wide and too dynamic with the 3-point perspective for what this particularly is. Particularly, I can't get that word off me. Pardon me. What I'm trying to show you here, there's a lot of spaces, a very bland and repeated texture. You want to try to break up that to make it visually stimulating for the viewer. That's before in the old days when I was younger, when we had when there was a design like this, you use the same pattern and you just filled the whole area. But now everything's more powerful and we're able to do that. People's tastes change. People have higher standards. And we have to adhere to them. So I'm like, if this is a steam fantasy setting, add in mechanical elements spread throughout your design. Break up the different floor textures by putting beams and rivets. Add some industrialization into this old inn, and then you can go back and add these secondary architectural elements, kind of like I'm doing here, so that you can get a lot more believable details out of the sense. Look up Victorian inns, look up old buildings from the 17th, 18th century. Get a lot of research and put them into like the very specific details. All right, but I think you're off to a good start. Just keep going with it and do some more research if you want to keep pushing the believability. All right, guys, we're back. We've decided our favorites. We categorized them into design-based and illustration-based.
Yeah.
So we have, great job. Great job, yeah. Isaac, and great job, Hans. Terrific work.
Both of them stayed on the context of the thing. There were other designs and stuff like that we thought were absolutely beautiful, but this kind of stuck to the recipe a little bit more, which professionally speaking is important, right? And just very successfully executed pieces of work, just, all around, really beautifully done. So,
round of applause. Great stuff, guys.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
So, guys, let me know. Did you like this type of challenge? Should we do it again? Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see challenge-wise in the future. So we're always open. We cast voting, and we make it hopefully approachable for many people. I think we had a good amount this month, though. We didn't get overwhelmed. So
yeah. We could actually manage it this time.
We can manage it, guys. Well, thank you for joining me, Adam. This has been a very fun morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.
And guys, let me know what your favorites were. If you disagree with us in design and illustration, you had another favorite, let us know. We'd love to hear. All right, take care.
Take care, everybody.